First of all, thank you all for being subscribers. It shocks me every time that someone or anyone would take time out of his or her day to watch content that I post, and I appreciate you for doing that. Now I need you to do something for me. Take what I'm about to say very seriously. Ingest it, believe it. I'm experiencing a family nightmare with the coronavirus epidemic that the world is experiencing now. On March 14th, a family gathering was held at my mother's home, which is also my home. What most of you don't know about me is that I live in the basement of my home. That's another story for a different time, but it has relevance in this situation. My mother wanted everyone over for her 86th birthday, which was on March 9th. She started talking about the plans in February. The closer we got to the party, the more uneasy I was starting to be as they had started talking about no gatherings larger than 1,000 people. Even though there would be nowhere near that many people, I still didn't like the idea of having even 100 people at my house. One year, there were over 300 people in and out of my house. I convinced my mother not to have the party. I told my mother that I would bring food before the party started, but I would not attend because of underlying conditions that I suffer: high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, previous battle with a disease called acute pulmonary blastomycosis January. The party was held. A few days later, my nephew became ill. He went to the ER, was given a battery of tests, and was sent home. 2 days later, he was back at the ER where he was admitted and told one of the tests he was given was for the coronavirus, and it was positive. He was awake and talking for a few days, but became progressively worse. He is now in critical condition on one of the highest levels of oxygen that they've used. In the interim, my aunt, sister, uncle, and 2 cousins all became sick. 4 have tested positive, and the other has not gotten the results back yet. On March 22nd, my mother complained of a headache and not feeling well. I thought this was unremarkable as she's 86 and is in and out of the hospital monthly. I let them know that my mother had been around family who had tested positive. They were going to discharge her that day, but they said they would test her and keep her under observation until her test came back. Her oxygen levels began to drop on Monday, so they put her on oxygen. The next day, she was in ICU. She was taken out of ICU the next day. I talked to her on Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, when I talked to her, she expressed frustration that she was ready to come home. I told her she would be home as soon as she got her results back. On March 25th, 2 hours later, I received a phone call from my niece, crying hysterically, that she had been informed by the hospital that my mother had removed her face mask, and by the time they noticed, something happened with her pacemaker that made them not know that she had flatlined. My mother passed away at age 86 before her test results came back. We had learned that another nephew visited his paternal grandmother, who was positive but had not gotten her results. He only found out after he visited her that she came back positive. She died on March 26th. And I'm doing this video not to frighten you, maybe just a little bit, but to tell you the truth about this pandemic. What I had not known is that if you or a loved one goes to the hospital for coronavirus infection, this will be the last time you see your loved one alone if they do not survive. No visitors are allowed, and the only way you will ever see them again is if you are fortunate enough to recover. The other reality is that your loved one will die alone. Doctors and nurses are spending as little time as possible with these patients, understandably, so that they are not being infected. There will be no funeral because large gatherings are prohibited. There will be no memorial service for the same reason. So why am I saying all of this? You all need to take this pandemic seriously. You need to sound the alarm to everyone you know. The media is not blowing this thing out of proportion enough, in my opinion. My family is not a touchy-feely bunch, so there was not a lot of hugging and kissing and that sort of thing. They were just around each other. This virus spreads quickly and it spreads easily. I have been trying to convince a young male relative of mine who lived with my mom to stop visiting other people and to quarantine himself. He wouldn't listen and was out and about when I called him to tell him that his grandmother died. I also had to tell him that he needed to let everyone that he had been in contact with know that he had potentially endangered their lives with this irresponsibility. Needless to say, that was the last day he went outdoors. When they say stay 6 feet away from people, listen. When they say wash your hands, listen. When they say avoid large gatherings, listen. As for me, I'm not sick as of today, but I believe only because I refused to attend my mother's party. Still, it does not relieve me of the devastation, paranoia, and worst of all, the guilt that I should have defied my mother and canceled the party. Take care of yourselves.